Rick, you still with me?
I'm with you, Paco.
All right, man. Appreciate that. And we were talking about foreign policy before the break. Let's go ahead and jump into economics here, our economy. Do you think there's any benefit at all that for the Federal Reserve System?
The Federal Reserve System needs to be closed down, and even more importantly, the debt that the Federal Reserve System claims to own, the almost $2 trillion of Treasury bills, as Ron Paul has pointed out, all of that Treasury bill debt that the Federal Reserve piled up in the last couple of years was all purchased with phony money. They didn't pay any real money for that debt, so all that debt can be defaulted with nobody it doesn't cost the American people a thing. We just need to close up the Federal Reserve and default $2 trillion of Treasury debt that they hold right away. It's the centerpiece of my campaign for Senate. You can read about it at rickwilliamsforsenate.com, my website. I make that argument that the Fed debt can be defaulted with no cost to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thankful that Ron Paul has pointed out the Federal Reserve to us, and prior to him, I had never heard of it. And yeah, you're right. We just need to get rid of it, audit it, end it, and keep on moving. Get these jobs back, and let's see here, fix our economy. Now,
let me tell you something, Paco. When I first started on Ron Paul Radio back in 2007, the economic issues are real important to me. My background is finance and economics. And I started my show on Ron Paul Radio about economics and about the bankers and about the Federal Reserve. And back in 2007, nobody knew anything about it. It was like my show was like a teaching show, almost like a college class. And today, you go around and there's lots and lots of people that understand the Federal Reserve and have begun to understand how our monetary system works. And you have to understand that or you can't understand anything. If you don't understand the money, nothing comes clear to you. But once you do understand it, everything is clear. And did you hear those people last night chanting at the rally, end the Fed, end the Fed, end the Fed?
They kept trying to do it over and over, but I loved it. And Ron Paul loves it. Did you see that one part when the crowd got crazy, and I guess the crowd didn't stop, so Ron Paul stepped to the side and was just like, go ahead, clap for me. Like, it was awesome, man. I can't explain the feeling last night. I wish every Ron Paul supporter could have saw that, man. It was great.
Of all the chants and all the cheers that the crowd gave last night, and there were a lot of them, the end the Fed chant was the loudest, the strongest, and the most heartfelt. So those are people, Paco, that have woken up.
Yep. And you know why it's the loudest and the strongest? Because we know that's the root problem. We know Ron Paul says the media and the other Republicans and Democrats, they attack the symptoms. They want to sit and argue about the symptoms. But us Ron Paul supporters, we know the root cause of the problem is at the Federal Reserve. So when Ron Paul brings up the Fed or we're screaming in the Fed, that is why it gets the loudest chance, because we know that is the root, and we got to fix that.
You're 100% right. That is the core, the heart of the problem. The counterfeiting by the Federal Reserve System is what allows the entire fraudulent structure in Washington, D.C. to operate. Without those counterfeits, they couldn't exist. And that's why it's the centerpiece of my campaign. If you go to my website, you'll see End the Fed, centerpiece of the campaign. I talk about it in every campaign speech I give and every place I go. A lot of people are waking up. A lot of people are still asleep, though, Paco. There's a lot of people that don't know.
But, just the fact that so many people even know what the term Federal Reserve, even know that term, the fact that Ron Paul and people like yourself have planted that seed, and so maybe not that day or next week they might not look into it or something, but it's there. It's in their mind, and they could always check it at any time. Now, besides auditing and ending the Federal Reserve, what else could we do to get more jobs back to California?
Well, one idea I have for California, and it's the biggest idea, actually came from Ronald back, the lands of California that are owned or managed by our federal government. Did you know that the federal government claims to own more than 40% of the land of California? Imagine what were to happen if the people of California were to kick the federal government out and take charge of that 40% of our state that they are just holding dormant.
I like
Natural resources development, agriculture, tourism, new families, new communities, new people, entrepreneurial spirit. That's where wealth comes from, and we need to kick out the dead hand of government. It's a Ronald Reagan idea, and it's catching on all across the West.
So basically giving the land back to the people.
Exactly.
What you're saying.
It's like it's like the Oklahoma land rush, the Oklahoma Sooners when the Sooners came out and they had the big land rush and opened lands in Oklahoma, and new families came, and they came with an entrepreneurial spirit and started new communities. That's all open to us here in California and all across the West, where the federal government is holding all these lands dormant. The founders never had any concept that the federal government would be a big landowner. We should just kick these people out, take the lands back, and get them productive. California would be the richest state in the world and in the country in an instant if we did that.
Well, it's the most beautiful one right now, I can tell you that, because I just moved out here about a year and a half ago, and I love it out here. But you're right, man. The cost of living, the jobs out here, the people, I keep hearing about people just leaving, moving. They can't take it no more here. They can't keep up. So yeah, it's very rough out here. So I do like that, though. I didn't even know that the government was claiming that. So I'm gonna look into that myself. Now, here in California, it's a very big deal, and it is a big deal to me and myself. What is your position on medical marijuana and the fact that the feds, like they just did in Oaksterdam up in Oakland, coming into our local shops and raiding our shops? What do you think about that?
My view on that is very much the same as Ron Paul's. I believe that the issue of regulating marijuana or other drugs is a matter for states to take care of, not the federal government. I would end the federal drug war. California passed a medical marijuana law that opened up medical marijuana here in the state of California, and I believe that we should be, living with that. I also favor the new initiative that a lot of people are trying to put through, regulate marijuana like wine. I think that we should treat it as a state issue, not a national issue.
That's awesome. And like Ron Paul said, you don't have to endorse what people do. You just got to endorse freedom. And I think that is what you're saying, is that, we should have the right to do that, the freedom to put in our bodies what we want. And I would think that you're also talking about foods like raw milk and certain foods that we put in our health foods that we put in our body.
Yes, it's exactly the same issue, and you put your finger on it. It comes down to one word. The word is freedom. Yep. There's no reason why we need, particularly at the federal government level, to be trying to micromanage people's lives. I think we have to recognize, Paco, that there are people like you that believe in freedom, people like me that believe in freedom, but there's a lot of people in this country that don't even want freedom.
They don't know what it is. They don't even know.
Yeah, they don't even know what it is. It's astounding to know that that's true, but it is.
Yeah, they don't, man. It's sad, and you're right. I mean, it's amazing some of the things I bring up to people, especially about with Ron Paul, and it doesn't click to them. I'm like, I don't understand this. Don't you want to be free? Don't you want to be free? Like, I don't get it. Oh, man, it's amazing. But, we're pushing, man. And what happened yesterday, we're just going to get bigger. Imagine if Ron Paul came back 3-4 years from now, how much bigger that crowd would be. I mean, it's just going to grow.
I'm very much an optimist about our entire movement and the concepts of freedom and liberty that Ron Paul talks about. I think here in California, and particularly in Southern California, we have a tremendous opportunity to really impact the cause of freedom. That's why I'm running for the Senate. RickWilliamsForSenate.com. Go to my website and you'll see that. I'm a believer. I'm a part of this movement. I will be. It's a part of my life and will be for the rest of my life. It's not, taking over a philosophy and changing the direction of the country. It's not like a football game where you show up for 4 quarters and then you go home and have a few beers and it's over. It's much more like a flowing river. What the people who believe in freedom, like you and like me, we have to understand that this is our life work. This is going to be going on for the rest of our lives. That's the way politics is. That's the way culture is. It's not like a football game.
But it's a great feeling, and it's a great thing to do. So it isn't even like it's a job or anything. It has its great points when you meet more people, when you wake people up. There ain't a greater feeling than that. Now, Rick, we are coming up to the end of the show, so I did want to ask you one last thing. I was wondering if there are any debates that are going to be going on with you in it, and also if there's anything else, anything last you want to say to our listeners in California.
Well, Rick Williams for Senate is the freedom movement here in California. This is the only statewide race on the California ballot. It's Ron Paul and me.
There, Rick. Go on and plug your website one more time.
RickWilliamsForSenate.com. Thanks, Paco.
All right, it was Occupy the Media. I'm Paco. I'm out.